Hey guys, this is Jeff Stanek with Figured Out Baseball. We've got a really good Figured Out Baseball podcast today for you. We're being joined by Bobby Valentine. You know him as a former Major League manager, as well as a former Major League player. He's currently the athletic director at Sacred Heart University, a Division I school in Connecticut. And I'd like to just go through a very quick bio on Bobby before we jump into questions with him, so you're a little more familiar just with maybe a little bit of his background if you don't know a lot of it. He's was born in Stamford, Connecticut, was drafted out of high school, taken 5th overall in 1968 by the Los Angeles Dodgers, made his Major League debut a year later in 1969 with the Dodgers as a 19-year-old. He last played in the big leagues in 1979 with the Mariners. He managed in the major leagues, managed the Rangers, the Mets, and the Red Sox. He also managed a team in Japan's NPB in the Pacific League in 1995 and was back there for the Chiba Latte Marines? Did I say that right?
Good job, Jeff. Yeah, it's a latte, but we could call it latte because that's a fun drink for everyone.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
He managed that team in 1995 and again from 2004 to 2009. His last season in the big leagues was 2012 with the Red Sox, and he took the job at Sacred Heart University in 2013, February 2013. And that's where he's been since. He was watching a basketball game before we jumped on this podcast. So, Bobby, I just want to first of all thank you for taking the time to be on this podcast with us.
Hey, Jeff, my pleasure. I've heard nothing but good things about you and your podcast, and I'm excited about joining you. So let's rock and roll for those listeners.
So first of all, I like to typically start with something in a normal podcast. I start with something from the bio that stands out, and obviously you've got a very lengthy bio that we didn't need to get into much. I think most people are going to recognize your name and especially your picture on the podcast. But I would actually like to ask you about, just to start with your bio, start with your time in Japan. 2 different stints in Japan, and the first one was after managing, if I'm not mistaken, you went from the Rangers to Japan for a year and then back to the States, but then back to Japan from 2004 to 2009. Would you mind talking a little bit about your time there and just what drew you back there and why you decided to spend so long managing baseball in Japan as opposed to being here where you clearly had job opportunities?
Wow, yeah. So I managed 7 years in Texas, and then I did manage a year in AAA for the New York Mets in Norfolk. While I was in Norfolk, there happened to be a world-class Japanese baseball personality who was an all-star player, manager, and general manager, who was given the task of scouring the ball fields of America and coming home with the first non-Japanese manager to manage the Chiba Lotte Marines. And so I was managing in AAA. This gentleman was going from Major League Park to Minor League Park, talking, watching, talking with the whole 9 yards. And in '95, he offered me the job to be the first American ever. And I was flattered, and I went over, and I had a 2-year contract. And I did something that I really shouldn't have done, but when the Mets called and asked me if I could get out of my contract because they were going to offer me the job to manage the Mets, I decided to get out of my contract and come back to New York and manage the Mets. And it was a pretty well-laid plan, and we came in second place in Japan the year I was there. I really worked my butt off. I got to know the players, the league, the fans. I created a new culture where the fans were more involved with the players, and they kind of liked it. And I kind of jumped ship on them. And when I got back to New York, the Mets said they were only kidding, and they'd offer me my AAA job back if I wanted it. And so I took the AAA job back mainly because I had no other job. It was paying $60,000, and I left a job that was paying $650,000. And I tried to explain it to my family as a bad career move. But lo and behold, when I got back to Norfolk, I only had to stay there until August, and in August, the Mets fired Dallas Green and hired me, and I went on a 7-year tenure with them. When they fired me, I was having lunch in New York 2 weeks later in a pretty good restaurant in downtown Manhattan, and my buddy was consoling me and telling me everything. Gray skies are going to clear up, put on a happy face, and the owner of my Japanese team came walking over to the table. He coincidentally was having lunch in the same place. And he said, "I've heard the news. Would you consider coming back to Japan?" And I said, "You got a deal." And I went back, and we won a Japan and Asian championship my second year back, and it was just a match made in heaven. I loved it. I learned to be a minority. I learned to speak a new language. I learned to appreciate things that were different than what I thought were things that were in stone and in concrete as far as how the game of baseball is viewed. And I wouldn't have traded in that experience in for anything in the world.
What are the odds that the owner of that team would be in the same restaurant as you? That's amazing. Absolutely.
I think it's amazing, and it's not like he's a New York, he's an international business guy. Lotte, you've probably seen the ads behind the Yankee games when they do those hologram of ads. It's LOTTE. It's a $40 billion family-owned operation where they use their baseball team in Japan and their baseball team in Korea as basically an advertising vehicle of the parent company.
That's amazing. Now, did your family live with you in Japan in either of those stints? Or both of those stints?
Never full-time. It became a diminishing stay routine. I think the first time it was probably 3 months. The second time it was 2 months. The third year it might have been a month. By the fifth year it was twice a year, and for the playoffs. So, I was working there. It was 24/7. It was a different culture. My wife was nationally showing collies and agility and was winning national championships, and to be away from her dogs was not a good. Let's put it this way: it was easier for her to be away from her husband than it was for her to be away from her dogs, and I understood it totally.
Pretty amazing, just to be able to spend that much time in a different country, different culture. I'm sure was very cool for you. Now, I'm also interested to ask you about jumping into college athletics and jumping into a position as an athletic director after spending so long managing, major league teams, minor league teams, managing overseas, and then to jump into being athletic director. How difficult was it for you, Bobby, to step off the field, being with players every day, being a guy that's managing and has your thumb on the team, for so long on a team, to step away from that, step off the field? What was that transition like for you?
Well, I was ready for the transition. I had made the break basically and was kind of all in on a broadcasting career. I was worked my way up to ESPN's top job. I was doing their Sunday night game of the week with Carl Ravitch, and then with Dan Shulman, and with Oral Hershiser and John Kruk and Tim Kirchin, and I was making a couple $1 million, and I was riding the new wave of a new career on a pretty high note. And then Larry Lucchino, who I had known for quite some time, reached out to me and said, the general manager left in the middle of the night, and they decided to change the guy who was leading the team, and if I would come up and manage the Boston Red Sox. And I was real drunk when I made that decision to go there, and I wish I was even drunker because it probably would have been something I would have turned down. But I did. I went back after a couple, 3 years, I guess, of working my butt off to learn the broadcast business and be pretty good at it. And then I stepped away and went up to Boston, and I had 7 months up in Boston, or however long it was, and realized that it really wasn't the place that I needed nor wanted to be for the next tenure of my life.
And then what happened that the Sacred Heart job, athletic director job, came open, even to pique your interest?
Well, it was just a phone call, and I didn't make it. I answered it, and Sacred Heart was at a place in time where, they needed to kind of rebrand themselves. They were making a push at becoming something other than the little commuter school that a lot of people knew them as for quite a while. They had put up in the computer buildings, their admissions were starting to climb, and campus and a blank campus, and I had knew nothing about being an AD. I'm not sure I could even spell AD at the time, but I said I'd give it a whirl for a couple weeks, and I stayed for 8 years now.
That's very cool. What do you like about being an athletic director at this point?
Well, there's a lot of satisfaction in watching people develop. With 33 Division I teams, and 19 of them being female sports and 14 being male sports, and having over 28 head coaches and twice that many assistant coaches and 1,000 student athletes, you have an opportunity to watch a lot of situations, and you happen to have the opportunity to help the growth of a lot of different people and a lot of different aspects of life. And I think that's been the most rewarding situation, to not only see athletes come and graduate and smile when they leave, but also see coaches go through the ups and downs of this calendar year of a sports team, and watch facilities that need to be improved, watch dollars come into the department from fundraising events. It's been an all-encompassing ride, and I've enjoyed most everything that I've been associated with at Sacred Heart. Now, that being said, it might be time for another change, because the longest I think I ever did anything in one place was 8 years, and I'm approaching that 8-year span.
I know what that's like. As a former college baseball coach, moving just kind of becomes a part of what you're doing. But I don't believe that if you end up leaving Sacred Heart, I'm sure it won't be under the same circumstances you left most of your other jobs. Hopefully this will be because something else comes up.
I did leave the broadcasting at my own will, yes. And when I was a player, I like to say that I chose not to continue playing. Now, that was because no one offered me a contract, but it still was my will to not play anymore.
Now, what about when you go to watch baseball games at Sacred Heart? Do you find yourself like thinking along with the coaches and like watching a move they make and just like kind of cringing and saying, "Oh my gosh, what are you guys doing?" and talking to them after the game like, "Hey guys, you need to I think you need to do a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that." Do you ever talk to the baseball coaches about that, or have the itch to?
No. With my baseball coaches as well as all the other coaches, I tell them that, I want them to think of me like continental breakfast when you check into a hotel. If you want it, I'm there. So I don't hardly ever, I would say in the span, I don't think I ever approached a coach after a game or when I recognize the situation to call it to the coach's attention. But most coaches, if they know that I'm there, they know that I'm watching, and they know that I'm there after watching if they need to talk about something. And some of those conversations have been fantastic.
That's what you'd like as a coach, obviously, from your administration, just to be there when you need it and not to be breathing down their neck. And not that you would be that kind of guy, but I'm sure that they know that that you've done some things and you've had some success at some pretty high levels. And I don't know if that maybe at the beginning, when a coach first begins, that might be more intimidating than later on. But I think that the way that you sounds like you're handling it is probably the best case scenario for these coaches. Do you ever get an itch to coach again, whether it's at the college level or go back into pro ball? Is that ever something that strikes you, or do you ever wake up in the morning and feel like, God, I kind of missed that?
No, the grind of it is just too much for me at this time of my life, and I understand the grind. I lived it. I loved it, and I couldn't embrace it now as a 70-year-old guy. Now, I do go by my sports academy where there's hundreds, if not thousands, of young people who are trying to improve whatever sport it is they're working on, and I spread myself thin there too. If anybody needs anything on there, and once in a while I'll throw batting practice. Once in a while, someone say, "Hey, Bobby, what do you think about this pitch, or what do you think about this swing?" And once they ask, then it's their fault that I take up 10 minutes of their life. But I enjoy that coaching aspect. But again, I've coached a lot of coaches and coached them how to coach, and I enjoy watching them do it.
Is that part of your job as an athletic director, is to coach coaches on how to do their job, how to coach? Like not necessarily on-field stuff, but do you ever just have conversations or take time to pull a coach aside and just talk to them about how to manage their players, how to manage things like playing time expectations or anything else? I know that pro ball is different than college athletics in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways it isn't. Is that part of what you consider to be your job as the AD there?
Yeah, in a more general sense, though. I don't want you to think that I'm solving the problems of who starts on Friday night, or of how long it's going to take to recover from an injury, or even what color uniforms they should wear on their Saturday afternoon battle. But generally, in the aspect of filling the needs that they should be filling, that these athletes come and they're on a journey, and they kind of know where they are, and they hope they know where they want to go, and it's the coach's job to help get them there. And I try to, and it's hard as hell, but I try to instill in the coaches that the players really don't care what you know until they know that you care, and that if you show them that you care, then you don't have to worry about telling them what you know. It's a real weird dynamic in today's sports world, but I think forever in all the sports worlds, and different people had different ways of showing and teaching that. Of course, I was a young player at 18 years old, left Stamford, Connecticut, went to Ogden, Utah as the number one draft of the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I'm going to play rookie ball, and the guy that meets me at the airport is Tommy Lasorda. I'll be flying out tomorrow back to L.A., and his funeral will be on Tuesday, and I'll be doing the eulogy for a guy that I met 52 years ago who remained a very close friend, mentor, and father-like person to me, but he had a unique way of showing that he cared. And then even if he said, that you swing at the high ball with your hands in a certain position and you knew that he was incorrect, it didn't matter, because what mattered was that he cared.
You mentioned Tommy Lasorda, and I'm sure that you have quite a laundry list of big names that you know that you played with, that you played under, that you coached. But Bobby, if you had to kind of pick a couple people from your journey, who were some of the biggest, most important mentors that you had, whether it be as a player or as a manager along the way? Who are some names that really meant a lot to you through your journey?
Well, of course, Tommy Lasorda. He was that guy. I had a high school coach, Ron Parenti, and a Babe Ruth League coach before him, John Sharkey-Lorino. They were all very instrumental in my development. Once I started to develop as a man and later as a coach and a manager, Tommy was still there, but I got to work, with Davey Johnson. I was his third base coach for 3.5 years. He let me into his inner sanctum of press conferences and lineups and all of that stuff. I played for Joe Torre before I retired. He remained a very good friend of mine, and Joe was always there with a great smile and an arm to put around my shoulder if necessary. I played for a lot of other Hall of Fame managers that I didn't really get anything from. Walt Alston, Dick Williams. There was probably, I think, one more in there, and I was kind of not a very big piece in their puzzle, and so they obviously weren't a very big piece in mine. But these guys, along with Lou Lamoriello, who was a guy who went out on the limb, and when he was 24 years old, took a 17-year-old kid out of high school after my junior year and let me start and lead off for his Cape Cod baseball team in 1967. And we've remained friends, and he's always been there to pick up the phone when I had that question in the middle of the night. And so I've been lucky. I've been very fortunate not only have great family, but also connect with people along the way who cared enough about me to lead me in the right direction.
It's amazing you've had so many relationships that have lasted for so long. And to mention your high school coach, your Babe Ruth coach, amazing. Most guys that have done what you've done would have forgotten about those guys a long time ago. That's pretty amazing in my opinion. If you had to, at this point, if you had the ear of a young coach, a young manager, or even a guy that was coming through maybe as a professional player and wanted to get into coaching at some point, wasn't quite there yet, if you had some advice to give, again, whether it's a pro or college coach, what is some advice that you might give a young guy that's kind of just getting started, like this is something you definitely don't want to forget, this is going to be pretty important for you to have success as you're going along?
Well, you obviously have to love what you're doing, but you also have to be good at it, and sometimes guys will follow that passion only because they love what that thing is they're doing, but they never take the time to figure out what it is that it takes to be good at what you're doing. I think the real successful people do what they're really good at and then learn to love it. And then some people are lucky enough to love what they're doing and be good at it, if you know what I mean. So I always try to make sure that there's not only passion and commitment to being a coach, but that they understand that coaching is all about giving, and that to be good at coaching, you have to be a good giver. And, some people come to grips in their life that, their mother was a little better giver than they are. And they're not quite as good at this part of the formula. And so they find out what they are good at, and then they do that. So I try to stress that on anyone, not only coaching, on anyone who's deciding or trying to decide, because how could you decide when you're young and the world is in front of you and you've had so little experience at life? How do you determine what you really want to do? You usually gravitate those things that you're good at. And if they do that, and people continue to gravitate forward in that direction, I'm sure that they'll be successful.
That's an interesting take that I don't know that I've heard somebody say before, to do what you're good at and learn to love it. Usually it's the other way around. Do what you love and find a way to make it work. Now, is that something, Bobby, that you take into the hiring process now as an athletic director when you're interviewing coaches for for head coaching positions? Do you try to dig and ask questions to find out if they are that type of person who is a giver and who understands what they're good at, and maybe even what they're not good at?
Isn't that one of the secrets to hiring? Yes. Of course, when you're looking for a certain skill set and you're doing it in interview process, it's extremely hard to find out if that person that you're hiring is going to actually be that round peg that fits in a round hole, or if that person and you become complicit in trying to put that square peg in a round hole only because this person's pretty cool and I like them and I really like the energy and it looks like that they really love what they're doing, but you forget that idea if they're going to be good at what they're doing. And to be good at it, believe me, it takes passion and commitment, but it also just takes a skill. And, some of those skill sets, my compliance people don't have to be great givers. They need to be great rule followers and people who understand how to stay inside the lane, So there's different skill sets for sure, but we were talking about that the coach has to really enjoy giving.
You mentioned now a couple times about being good at what you do. What does that mean to you as a college coach? And I'm asking you this as an athletic director because I think that we have a lot of people listening to this who are either in college athletics and maybe would like to get another job or get a head job someday, or people that would like to get into college coaching at some point. To be good, does that what comprises being good at your job? Is it the winning? Is it keeping getting your kids to graduate and having a good team GPA? Is it what exactly goes into you finding out if someone's good at their job? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, okay, so winning, getting a good GPA, graduating, those are all things that kind of happen at the end of the game. And in order to win at the end of the game, there's a process. There are things that have to happen during the game that you win and the game that you lose, the practice that you have and the practice that gets rained out. There's a process that needs to take place in order to get to where you're going. And in order to do that, you have to have the skill set to be able to inform people, those that you're coaching, what they need to be informed on. You must be skilled in your language, all right, so that you can inform those who need to be informed. And then you have to understand about the instruction part of information, that you not only have to have the information, but you have to be able to deliver it. Sometimes it's in physical instruction, but sometimes it's in visual and audio instruction, because some guys and gals learn better with their eyes and some learn better with their ears. But you have to learn how to instruct the individual player on your team. And then it's paramount that you learn to inspire them, that you learn to make them want to do it again. Okay? And that's all it is that you're inspiring them, whatever they do, whatever sport they play, whatever click it is that you want them to click. You have to be the person that is inspiring them to want to do it again. And, that stuff's tough. That's all tough. It takes time to get the information. It takes time to understand the individual and how they need to be instructed. And then it takes time to inspire them to do it again, because you don't really get rewarded when they do it again. And many times, as Tommy Lasorda used to say, as he would be throwing hours on end of batting practice to us in 100-degree weather in the minor leagues or in winter ball or wherever we might have been, he would conclude the practice very often by saying, I know I made you guys better today, and I know there won't be one of you who send me a fruit basket on my birthday. But tomorrow we're going to come out here again, and I'm going to try to make you better. And, that's that essence of giving. That you're giving only to give, not to get. That you're not going to get the fruit basket on your birthday, and that comes with the territory. So it's a wonderful world, that coaching thing, and the reward that you get and the accolade that you get is that you made someone better than they were when you got them. And when you learn to appreciate the fact that their swing is better, their fielding's better, their pitch is better, their makeup is better, their social skills are better, their confidence is better. If you were involved in that process of them getting better, you are rewarded. And a lot of coaches fall by the wayside because that's just not enough for them.
Bobby, I know we're running out of time, but I'd like to ask you one more question if you have a few more minutes.
If I don't lose you here in a bad cell area, because I do have to get home.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd just like to know, in your opinion, you've obviously come a long way, and I'm sure that you've learned a lot through your coaching, through the years of coaching and managing where you've been. What has made Bobby Valentine successful? What has made you who you are today?
Well, I think that I love challenges, and that when there's something that's presented, I take it upon myself to give my all to solve the situation. And I've gotten a lot of credence out of the fact that when I give a good effort, I usually get pretty good results. And, when you're building that dash that's on your tombstone, that's that dash between the time you were born and the time that you die, you like that dash to be as full as possible. And I think the fact that Pals, as you mentioned, I was fired when I was 16 years old, working in a men's store. I was released as a major league player. I was fired 3 times as a major league manager. I was divorced. I was broke twice, and I'm 70 years old today. I drive a pretty good car. I feel like I've kind of gotten close to the top of the hill, and I'm not really ready to go down the other side. So I just think the fact that I have been resilient and that I have met the challenge quite often in my life, and that's something that I think I'm allowed to stick my chest out at him.
I'd have to agree. This is Bobby Valentine, everybody. He's currently the athletic director at Sacred Heart University. You know him probably as a major league player, major league manager. Bobby, I just want to say thank you so much for being on this podcast, for taking the time out of your day to be here with us.